Welcome to one of the most critical phases of your entrepreneurial journey, organising the finances. As any seasoned entrepreneur will tell you, if your finances are shaky, you're setting yourself up for a world of headaches. If you want your business to go the distance, building a solid financial foundation is not negotiable. I look at the things that could have killed my business over the years, and it's the accounting things. Especially in my first business, I wish I'd learnt more about the books. So look, it's very important to understand general bookkeeping, a profit loss balance sheet, cash flow. What I've found is also a really good tool is literally a cash flow budget. So it's what I typically do is when I start something new, I'll set up a spreadsheet. It'll have the number 1 at the top, number 24 at the end. So that's 24 months, 2 years for those challenged. Then down the side, I'll put revenue, then I'll put known expenses. And I'll forecast out from that. That's a really basic budget, really basic cash flow budget. If we're talking about books, look into the cash accounting versus accrual accounting. That'll get important at some points. I'll make this too wonkish on accounting. But on that cash flow budget, use that. It's on a spreadsheet, so you can delete things out. But use that as, I suppose, as a baseline. So, if you think you're going to have revenue in month 3 or month 4, and it comes into month 5, what other impacts does that have? You can make these spreadsheets more, more adaptive and more of a model, and you can sort of link the number of customers to the number of revenue, for example, which could be helpful at the same time. And if the difference between what you thought you were doing, what you're doing is, in the negative, and that's a problem, and you can then try to understand why that's doing that. And that's part of the telemetry. I always talk about telemetry in business, having actual data inform your decisions. So, make sure you're getting the right data, you're making the right decisions. You reassess those decisions just in case they're wrong or your methodology was wrong. So that's important. But really, really good profit loss, balance sheet, cash flow, but then a cash flow budget. And there's some tools out there. Don't get too fancy. Your job is probably not to learn an accounting tool. Your job is to sell your widget or your service, whatever that is. 24-month cash flow accounting tool. The only reason businesses go broke ultimately is because they run out of cash. So this will help you manage that, because at the bottom of that, you can actually end up having cash at bank, which is a really important thing. But there's no end of other YouTube videos or courses, I imagine, maybe even this one, that will teach you about how to do a spreadsheet and how to do that sort of budgeting. But I think that to me it's a really, really, really important tool. One of my favorite topics, balance sheet accounting. And that was me being sarcastic. Balance sheet accounting is really hard. P&L accounting is a lot easier. Cash flow accounting is a lot easier. So elements of a balance sheet are the assets. The assets are essentially the things that you own. They can be hard assets. They can be like computers or cars, for example. They can be soft assets. They can be the work you've put into building a computer program to sell your services, for example. You can assetize that, and that's merely a reflection of the capital you've previously spent to create that computer code, for example. So it's things that you own in the business. Normally, they're put on your books at what you could sell it for, what it's actually worth, or you get to do something called a write down. But essentially, it's what you own. Liabilities is what you owe. Typically, that's going to be some sort of debt, credit card debt. You'll find there's a lot of payroll that goes into liabilities. So your leave, for example, if you've got unaccrued superannuation, other bits and pieces like that. If you have a long-term business and you have staff accruing superannuation, long service leave, then that would be one that you'd want to keep an eye on. So it can be bills that are due now, or debt that's due now, or debt that's due later. It's very important to understand that. If you have customers pay you in advance for services, so someone comes along and says, "I'll pay you," you charge $50 a month for whatever beautiful thing you do. And someone says, I'll pay you 12 months in advance if I can pay $500 instead of $600 for that. So you give them a discount. That's quite common. The money, then you get into a concept of unearned revenue. That becomes a liability. So you have an obligation to provide that customer a service for the next X many months until that runs out. That becomes a liability. So revenue can turn into liability. I don't want to get too crazy on that, but that's an important one, because that is responsible for a lot of business failures. That's really important to understand. And equity is your value in the business, I suppose. It typically involves what you've invested, plus any profit you've retained, any profit you've reinvested back into the business. The reality is what your business is worth is what someone's going to pay for it. So go to accountants all you want for that definition, but the only person who gets to decide on what your business is worth, the person who's going to buy it from you. When I first started, I made sure every dollar was mapped out, from startup costs to monthly expenses. That planning kept us afloat until we started turning a profit, and it kept us from scrambling later on. Assets are everything of value that the business owns. Equipment, technology, customer relationships, and even your brand's reputation. Knowing your assets helps you see where your strengths lie and where further investment might be required. Liabilities are debts or obligations like loans or deferred payments. A good record here is crucial for healthy cash flow and avoiding sudden cash crunches. Equity is your own stake in the business. It includes your initial investment and any profits you reinvest, sometimes called retain, representing your commitment to the venture. Cash is the lifeblood of a business, and ultimately it's the reason you do this, to be honest. You might have desires about changing the world, but you can change more of the world if you earn more cash from it, let me tell you. Cash is king, so make it a daily habit to check your accounts. Track inflows and outflows every day. This keeps you in the loop on your liquidity, covering operational costs and handling surprises without stress. Strong cash flow management means fewer financial crises and steadier growth. Practical tip, I've seen so many businesses fail simply because they didn't monitor cash flow closely enough. Regular reviews of income and expenses help you catch shortfalls early before they become major issues. Keep an eye on what's in your bank account at all times. Make sure there's always enough to cover essential expenses. The bank account is really important as well because a lot of businesses fail because of theft. Theft from staff. Accounting staff are renowned for this. So keep a close eye on this, especially nowadays with the rise of phishing with a PH, that is people trying to scam you out of money. So good fiscal discipline there, or good bank account management discipline is very important. And if you have bookkeepers and accountants in the business, they are a massive risk. And I have lots of lovely bookkeepers and accountants I know, but they'd all tell you the same thing. The big cash hole in the business is often the staff member with control of the bank accounts. So be very, very careful of that. It's very important. Don't overlook compliance. Know the legislative and regulatory framework you're working in and make sure all your documentation is on point. Whether you're in retail, tech, or something else, staying compliant means your business is legally sound and ready for growth. What is very important here is payroll, superannuation, and similar. The government has a very poor sense of humour to employers not paying their superannuation, as they should. And you as a responsible business owner shouldn't be one of those who don't do that. So be very careful here. There are exceptionally strict penalties involved, and so that is something to be highly aware of. Another point on cash flow is that if you actually have a somewhat of a complex business offering, you might be offering a service and in lieu of something else, the one thing that will never lie about the profitability of business is cash. The other reason you have a good look at cash is if your business plan's working but your cash is going down, then you've probably got a problem. So cash is a really good indicator to the health of the business and I suppose to the health of the products and the services you're providing. So it's very important to stay attuned to cash.